Welcome to It's Happening in Grand Prairie. I'm Georgia Clemson, and we have a special edition show today with two exciting guests. We're so excited to have Mayor Ron Jensen with us.
Good morning, Georgia.
Good morning, and we have Michael Morris.
Georgia, good morning. Mayor,
Yes.
good morning to both of you.
Oh, it's great to have you. And I know our guests and viewers are saying, well, we know Mayor Jensen, but we haven't met Michael Morris formally on this show before. So this is going to be a very exciting show. Mayor, why don't you tell us where Michael Morris is from and your connection with him?
Well, I was elected to the council in 2002, and when I got elected, Charlie wasn't, many times the mayors are on the RTC. Charlie never wanted to be. He would want to get out of town on Thursdays, and we meet on Thursdays. And Mr. Englert was on the RTC, and when he got beaten the election, one or 2 years, I think the next year after I got on the council, Charlie tagged me to be on the RTC all the way back in, I think, 2003 or 2004. Well, Michael is our director over there, the MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization, and the RTC. So that's when I first met Michael at the RTC. And that's one of the things you and I want him to do today, is kind of give a high-level intro and explanation of what a Metropolitan Planning Organization is and what the RTC is. You're on the big COG board,
Yes.
and I'm on the RTC, and so that's one of the areas you and I want him to cover today. So I've known Michael since probably 2003 or 2004.
Excellent. And Mr. Morris, I've seen you in action from a distance, but actually getting to serve with you on the COG board has been such a pleasure because, in my opinion, you are the guru of transportation in our North Texas region and probably beyond. And it's been really a blessing to get to see you in action and what all you do for our region, and especially specifically for Grand Prairie. So we're glad you're here, and we want to hear what's going on with transportation in our area.
Well, Georgia, it's very nice to be with you, and thank you both for your public service. I'm a four-decade public servant. I believe in public service. Our family moved here when I graduated from graduate school. And it's really cool to have both a member of the executive board, the COG executive board, and a member of the Regional Transportation Council to explain what we do. So back in the 70s, states were doing a reasonable job building the national interstate highway system between urban regions. But when it got into urban regions, it got really, really complicated. And Congress wished to establish a group of local elected officials, members of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, in our region it's called the Regional Transportation Council, to focus on getting these transportation projects built within these urban regions, because these urban regions, the top 30 urban regions in the United States, produce 80% of the gross domestic product of the country. So Congress, who wishes to have a successful United States, picked up very early, we need to get the elected officials that are closest to the people laser focused on getting transportation projects done in often very imaginative fashions, very innovative funding, very often using combinations of funding sources or technology. So I get paid in federal funds. So when you fill up your car in gasoline, that gasoline tax funds our staff to expedite, tear down silos, think outside the box, and fast-track transportation investments in the region. We are associated with the North Central Texas Council of Governments. I'm a North Central Texas Council of Governments employee. So when we make a decision like to fund a major freeway, those funds go directly to, say, the Texas Department of Transportation, or they'll go to the city of Grand Prairie, or they'll go to Dallas County. Sometimes the Regional Transportation Council wishes us to implement, for example, we have 6,000 traffic signals in the region. The RTC wants them to be constantly updated as part of that process. So you, as a member of the executive board, we bring the item to you and say, hey, the RTC in this case wishes us, our staff, to implement the program, and you are what we call our fiduciary agent. You're our banker. You do the business transactions for our department that come to you from the Regional Transportation Council. The other cool thing at the Council of Governments is there's 8 or so departments. So it's really nice where I don't have to call some other agency if I want to deal with emergency preparedness. We have an emergency preparedness department. Or if I wish to do something on stormwater, we have an environmental department that does stormwater. So it's a multifunctional Council of Governments under state law, where back in 1966, the state of Texas said, you know what, we're going to aggregate these local governments in every part of the state so they can go and have a technical resource, an extension of their staff, to brainstorm on whatever our local governments need. Have it be cities, have it be counties or school districts. So it's really nice to wake up, and some days I'm implementing a federal process to figure out with Grand Prairie how to expedite 161. And then other days I'm working with my colleagues on an emergency preparedness plan to help facilitate our police officers and first responders with regard to how they can help local governments.
So a very broad spectrum of things going on at RTC and COG. Now, Mayor, what do you think has been one of the most important transportation issues that has come through COG or RTC recently?
Well, the most important for Grand Prairie was the George Bush Turnpike.
Yes.
161 was supposed to have been built many, many, many years ago, and there's a lawsuit filed for it. Environmental studies were done, and it finally got approved. But how do you pay for it? And that's when the negotiation started. Where do we get the funding? And the cities, us, Irving, even our neighboring cities had to buy in to allow it to be a toll road. And then it also hit a snag because at that same time the Trans-Texas Corridor was going through Austin, and they had put a hold on that and were going to stop it. So Mayor England and I and Tom Hart had to go to Austin and get with our senator and say, we got to grandfather us. I mean, there's a lot of behind the scenes things that had to happen to get the George Bush Turnpike through Grand Prairie. But let's think about this. Had the George Bush Turnpike not gone through, we wouldn't have the Epic Waters, IKEA wouldn't be there, Bass Pro wouldn't be coming. So as Michael and I know, transportation, one of the things we use transportation for is to get economic development. We don't know if it's ever going to come, but it ain't going to come if the road's not there. So that's the most exciting thing that's happened while I've been on it, because it impacted Grand Prairie. Now, my goodness, if you travel in North Dallas, I think another highly innovative plan was 635. If you rode on 635 years ago, all one level, you can't get anywhere anytime. Well, my goodness, Michael, what y'all did to get that multi-level and to fit it in is crazy. And people don't know that unless they've driven it.
Yeah.
The old and the new. It's just fantastic. And so, of course, again, the George Bush for us, but now we're looking at 360. You know, we had to work with the RTC, TxDOT, NTTA to get the 360. What is there now? That's the toll road. Goodness, we had to underwrite it.
Yeah.
$300 million loan, a backstop. Well, see, people don't understand that the RTC had to be the guarantor for $300 million. Well, that benefits my city, our city, Mansfield, Arlington, but the whole Metro RTC supported it. That was a big thing. Had we not done that backstop, and that backstop's been released now because the tolls are doing good.
360 is so successful, we no longer are
have
on
it
the
as
note.
a backstop. Yeah. And so now we're working on the extension of 360 down
To 67.
to 67, and so that's going to mean a lot to Venus, us, Mansfield, Midlothian. So there's just so many things. going on, but Michael truly is the best at what he does. What are there, Michael? 5 MPOs in Texas?
No, we have there's 5 major
5 major ones.
major
A lot of
ones.
little ones, but the
Yeah,
5 major ones, yeah.
So you have Houston and Dallas Fort Worth and Austin, San Antonio,
Right,
El Paso.
right. Those are the 5
Those are the
majors.
big those are
Right.
the big boys. But Georgia, I think what's really interesting is how the RTC is the adult in the room and how you on the executive board is the adult in the room. So 161 is not happening. So there was a lawsuit to block TxDOT to build 161. The Attorney General comes in, interviews TxDOT staff, interviews our staff. Our staff became the expert witnesses to go back to Barefoot Sanders Court to relieve the injunction on 161. The TxDOT had to make a choice to either take homes in a lower income neighborhood or to clip the park that's right next to 161. They elected to clip the park. It drew a lawsuit. We were able to come in as experts and say that was the right decision to not take people's homes. Barefoot Sanders agreed to it. Now we can proceed with the project. Now TxDOT has no money to build the project.
That's right.
So now we got to say, okay, well, this isn't fair to Grand Prairie. We finally got it lifted. So we asked the North Texas Tollway Authority to do it. And then I said, well, it's not really fair to the residents of Grand Prairie. So we created a partnership deal. And I'm not sure Grand Prairie residents ever think of how mature the conversation really is, because they see individual projects. They don't see systems. We build systems. So I went to Grand Prairie and I said, you know what? If you will take it as a user fee NTTA toll road, then we'll go to the RTC to build you continuous frontage roads on Interstate 30 and continuous frontage roads on Interstate 20. And that'll be an equity partnership. And we as staff created this innovative system that made it easier for the elected officials to go back and say, you know what, at least we get 161. Yes, our users will pay for traveling on the main lanes. The frontage roads will be there. That'll create an economic development opportunity. And oh, by the way, you inherited a toll road on I-30 in the old days, so therefore it didn't have frontage roads. That wasn't fair to you. And by the way, your Interstate 20 project was built at a time where TxDOT couldn't afford frontage roads along Interstate 20. The RTC gets the benefit of frontage roads, so we can have more reliable freeways. You get the benefit of creating opportunities for economic development to help your tax base, to lower over time, you know, the implication this would have with regard to property tax and other things in your community, because you would have more economic development helping to pay for those services. I think it was a wonderful partnership.
Oh, we called it near neighbor money, I think.
Yeah,
is what
near
the
neighbor,
term.
near time
and
frame.
people don't understand that we wouldn't have frontage roads on
Today.
I-20 or I-30 still today if that had not been worked
Part
out
of
as
the
a
partnership.
negotiating part of the partnership deal to accept the NTTA coming through our city.
And then we go up to 635 North. The neighborhood was very skeptical. We created this policy called no higher, no wider. And if you travel on 635, you see a express lane at the bottom and cantilevered freeway lanes. It's the 8th wonder of the world.
It's really a pretty neat deal.
Yes.
We created a partnership with the private sector to pay for that. They had some brilliant opportunities and brilliant design ideas to help us on that project. But when you focus on the outcome of the people and throw your name badge away and create partnerships to try to expedite, back to our charges from Congress and your responsibility on the RTC, you got to throw your name badge away and create innovative ways to expedite the implementation. Then the region wins. We're growing at 1 million people every 7 years and have for 3 decades. We got to build a lot of transportation to keep up with that. Now the school districts have to build a whole bunch of schools. Cities have to do sewage treatment. We all work as a team. But we're working hard to build innovative transportation to keep up with what our region is being asked for, and that's to help Texas grow as part of the Texas miracle.
Councilmember Clemson, I think I just thought of something else I'd
Yes.
like to bring up, and that's the when I was the chair, I was honored to be the chair of the RTC. And Michael, while I'm mentioning that, tell our viewers what the RTC is made up of. There's 41?
So yeah, we're up to, we're at 45
45.
individuals. The transportation entities in the region have voting rights. So TxDOT districts, our partner, the Toll Road Authority that we just talked about, DFW, Airport, and our 3 major transportation authorities. So those entities have policy officials, not staff people, policy officials on the Regional Transportation Council. And then the remaining 35 seats, given congressional intent, these are made up of the local elected officials that are closest to the people. So these are mayors, council members, county judges, and county commissioners.
Yeah, we get 1 seat, but Dallas gets 5, I think, because of the population. I think Fort Worth gets 4, maybe.
It's a one person, one vote system, and then
based on population.
And then 20 years or so ago, maybe 25 years ago, the smaller cities, because we have 250 cities, the smaller cities, if they can aggregate up to 260, 300,000, then they would get a seat. So everyone wants to be on the RTC.
They all want to be on the table.
And sometimes we have 10 cities to represent the size of Grand Prairie. And sometimes Dallas is 5 to 6 times bigger than Grand Prairie, so they have more seats. And everyone comes in there, and part of my responsibility is to get them to throw their name badge away, because not everything we can do is always to bring back a transportation project in each of these 40 cities and build a system in an orderly fashion. Some years you get your billion-dollar project, and other years other people get your billion-dollar project.
So,
but there's other things like downtown Grand Prairie.
That's what I wanted to go to.
You got to reach in and say, okay, it's time to rebuild downtown Grand Prairie and create a new vision. So the city manager and you as elected officials, hey, let's redo our downtown. So I love that notion, because now the people that maybe want to locate in your downtown as a niche business in downtown is probably not the same business that's going to locate on 161.
Correct.
It's probably not the same business that's going to locate on I-20, frontage road. Probably not the same business as I-30. Probably not the same business that's going to locate on 287 in South Grand Prairie. So the more we can create different markets within our community, the more different people can knock on your council door and say, hey, could we come to your town and make your city a better place? And it's my job to create enough diversity, have it be bike ped, signal improvements, safety improvements, freeways, frontage roads, air quality projects, to create the diversity. So you as elected officials take the time to say, hey, let's get Michael on a show and showcase all these abilities to have everyone's voice have a place to be heard. If you're a skateboarder and you want access to a new park, and that park needs transportation to get people there, we create a partnership to create opportunities for skateboarders to be able to do their thing. So it's a really wonderful opportunity. When my wife and I came in here in '79, it was the friendliest people we ever met anywhere in the country. And to this day, I think Dallas-Fort Worth Texans are the friendliest people. And it's nice to, throw your name badge away and just focus on the outcome and whatever the people need.
So Michael, let's talk a little bit about 180, because we are fixing to work in conjunction with RTC and COG and TxDOT to reduce that from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. And I remember when that first, I think I was the chair when that Give Back program was originally floated, and a lot of us were worried, well, what you're making us take over the maintenance of TxDOT road through our city, and they explode, well, you don't have to, but we're going to give you the ability to if you have vision for what you want to do with it. And that's what started that years ago, and now we're seeing it hopefully come to fruition here pretty soon to make our downtown more viable.
So every day in this job, you never know where the national government may go, and you sometimes don't know where the state government's going to go. So supporting the mayor's point, maybe it was 15 years ago, during COVID, you always have to add about 3 years to whatever you think is, because it's further back than you think. The state wakes up one day and says, you know, we have no money. We can't maintain all of these roadways like the US 180s in Grand Prairie, because that's the one we're talking about. We're going to have to turn those back over to the cities. Well, the cities wake up and say,
Whoa!
whoa, we don't have the money to pick up everything that you wish to not maintain anymore. And now the pendulum has swung all the way to maybe we don't want to give any of these roadways back. So I think the story to be told is Interstate 30 got bigger, 161 got built, 180 no longer serves. If you go back to the 20s, 30s, and 40s, you wanted to go from Washington, D.C. to California, you traveled through Grand Prairie and downtown Arlington, and Lancaster in Fort Worth, and that was your route on the Bankhead Highway to go from Washington, D.C. to California. I'm pretty sure no one is traveling down your main street to get from Washington, D.C. to California.
Not anymore.
They're up on your $1.5 billion Interstate 30. So it's our job to communicate. In 1942, 93% of the purpose of that roadway was throughput, 7% was access to land use. If you look at your Main Street project today, 90% of Main Street today is land use, 10% is throughput. You don't need to be on Main Street if you're going from Arlington to downtown
Right.
Dallas. When we build our continuous frontage roads, in the old days you would have to do it because accident on the freeway, you'd have to take it. But with continuous frontage roads on 30, we really need to make the case. The adults again step forward, make the case. Main Street should be smaller because 161 is now there and Interstate 30 is now there. And
Yes.
to create new niche businesses that people like me in Arlington, I regularly went to your farmer's market in downtown Grand Prairie, brought the family. Wouldn't it be cool to do a whole bunch of other stuff like that in downtown?
And that's what's interesting, Michael. People don't know the backstory, how we're able to even do that. And as you said, the pendulum swings. Sometimes they want you to do it, sometimes they want to make you do it, sometimes they'll work with you on it, then they change their minds. So you kind of got to be ready when...
And the public, probably gets frustrated why things take so long, but the state's interest is, well, we don't want to do anything that hurts the ability of the public to use that roadway because the
Right.
public paid for that roadway. That's the right policy question to ask. It's our burden to say, the magnitude of lanes on that roadway are no longer needed for the public interest. We need to represent the public interest as well. But I think that's through traffic simulations we can show that, through good public policy, white papers we can show that. And that's really the cool partnership we have with your staff and with you as both elected officials. You're the elected officials. If you didn't want us working on Main Street downtown, we wouldn't be working on Main Street downtown.
Right.
You want us to work on Main Street downtown? Well, we're going to try to figure out a way, working with our TxDOT partners to create the right vision. And that onus is on us to figure that out.
Yes, and I was just thinking that transportation has transformed our city. As the mayor said, 161, and then the frontage roads, and downtown, of course. But the frontage roads, I'm really excited about them because in my district we come right up to I-30. And Mayor, I know we have a lot going on at Epic Central and on 161, but there's really a lot that's going to happen on I-30 as well, correct? Because we do have available land and we can get to it now.
We're finally able to get to it, and you and I know some things that we should be able to announce soon, but there's more activity there now because the frontage roads are open. We've got some development coming there someday in the future. Who knows when? We'll probably have a casino out there. I don't think it's going to get out of session this session. Doesn't look like it. Dan Patrick doesn't want it out, and if he doesn't want something out, he's usually not going to get out. And so, but there's other things we're working on. Cricket is going to be there in the entertainment district. So the frontage roads will start becoming utilized. The city is looking at that floodplain area. There's 1,000 acres of floodplain there that years and years ago we just looked at it and said, well, that's pretty water, we're never going to be able to use it. Well, there's new technology to get things out of the floodplain and reclaim it. The rule of thumb is you can get about a fourth of it reclaimed, and so the price point and the development is getting to where it may be priced okay to be able to pay to get it out and use. So a lot of things, we'll be able to announce some things in the future about the frontage roads along I-30 and that intersection 1382 and I-30. So.
In Georgia, you know, your interest in these frontage roads, it came out of this adult conversation about how to get 161 and be fair to Grand Prairie, and it comes with these frontage roads. The region benefits if there's an incident or an accident on I-30. Those signals can turn green and we can bypass the incident if that ever happens. And then the city benefits from having access to land to create economic development, because we got to get these 1 million people every 7 years, and if we can get them in the middle of the region that already has transportation, that saves the RTC a lot of money to put folks along places where we already have transportation projects.
And we do have challenges in Grand Prairie. I heard someone say yesterday, and first time I'd ever heard them say, we're the longest city in Texas. 32 miles long and approximately 7.
First I'd heard of that. They told us that yesterday.
Yes, I thought that was very interesting. And I did ask Alexa, I said, Alexa, how far is it from Fort Worth to Dallas? And she said 32 miles. And that puts it into perspective for me to say that's how long our city
right.
is. And that is a challenge transportation-wise and many other ways. But I just thought that was interesting.
I did
comment
too.
Yesterday. Now, you mentioned something that I think our viewers might be interested in, Michael. I know you're always thinking out of the box, and it's down the road. But when you said we make the lights change and we do this and we do that, when will we get smart lights where we don't sit there when there's nobody coming? And I know it has to all be coordinated with everything else, but I'm just thinking about when it's late at night and you're sitting there at a red light and nobody's coming either way.
And we all want to go through the light.
Right. Will we ever get smart lights that can...
Yeah, so we're working on what I call next generation traffic signals. And the expectation should be, if my cell phone can do all these things, you know, when will this improve? So the first one we want to do is ambulances. So we know it's an ambulance, we got a GPS device, we know where it is, we know the lights are on, comes off a freeway by one of the emergency rooms. We're going to turn all those signals green and get all the cars out of the way of that particular ambulance. So that ambulance driver is not forced to be cautious going through red lights to get their patient to the destination.
Right.
Then these smart traffic signals we're working on, these major bus routes. Instead of having dedicated pavement where you take that whole lane away from cars, you take the same technology, put it in a transit vehicle. Not every route has to have this, but the ones that have frequent high demand, like Lancaster and Fort Worth and the new Phase 1 program at DART, we then take that technology to these vehicles. And you know, this bus stop is stopped here at 133, 400 days in a row. We know how long it has to stop for. The traffic signal turns green before the doors close, and then you do those particular strategies. Same thing has to come with the ability to detect the demands. We're working on a project now for trucks. So think of your big warehouses in the northern part of town or in your industrial district. Those acceleration rates for trucks are so slow. How many times have you been around behind a truck? One truck gets through the signal light, you got to wait around for that. How do we make sure the signal light know there's a truck there to change the signal timing length? So not one truck gets out every signal time. Hey, I got 8 trucks there. I'm going to turn the green time longer. I'm going to flush all these trucks out of here with one acceleration rate. And then we work on, you know, late at night, picking up on these low volume things. So the public should expect technology is on their way. And we're not bright enough to figure it out ourselves, but we're hiring really bright people to help us get to that end.
That is excellent. We need to wrap up our show for today, and we haven't even gotten to the railroads to fuss about them for blocking our traffic. We'll have to have an extension on another show.
That's an easy one. They can do what they want.
Isn't that the truth? And they do. But anyway, gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been so interesting to hear about transportation. Mayor, thank you for being here.
You bet.
And Michael Morris, it's such a pleasure to have you in Grand Prairie, Texas, and for all that you do to keep us transportationing in the right direction.
Georgia, thank you very much. It's an honor to be with both of you today.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us. I'm Georgia Clemson reminding you it's happening in Grand Prairie.